So, thank you so much for joining us. You've got some amazing panelists today. My name is Leigh Smyth. I'm the CEO of Impact Match, and today I have got today I've got blonde hair. I just had it blonde last week. I've got my hair up. I've got big round glasses on. I've got a stripy shirt, so I can look very professional today. I've got freckles, and I'm delighted to meet you all. We've also got Tom Simpson, who's the CEO and founder of Startingpoint. We've got Tomney-Bell, who's a D&I lead from giffgaff. We've got Disha from Standard Chartered. And we've also got the amazing Cressida Stephenson, who's the founder of EdenChase. And thank you so much for everybody putting the chat in the chat where they're from and why they're here today. It's really helpful to know. So today we're going to talk about something that's very, very important. And before we go into the live discussion, what I'd really love to do is ask our panelists to introduce themselves, who they are, and why this agenda is so passionate to them. So over to Tom, please, if that's okay.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tom Simpson. I'm about 5'7" on a good day, maybe 5'6". I have round glasses on, blue top. I am bald as you can possibly get, and I'm the CEO and founder of an employability platform called Startingpoint, which specialises in inclusion.
Thank you so much, Tom. And over to you, Mr. Ian Tomney-Bell.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. So, yeah, I am Ian Tomney-Bell, more commonly known as ITB, along with some other names that let's not mention on this call. Today I'm wearing a gorgeous floral top. I have black glasses. I have short curly hair is probably the best way to describe what's going on right now. I'm very, very pleased to be here. I'm from a little place just north of London called the North, also Doncaster.
That's very funny. And Disha, would you like to introduce yourself, please, and why you're so passionate about this agenda?
Sure. Thank you so much. Yeah. So my name is Disha Mehta. I am 5 feet tall. I'm currently wearing like a blue blazer, not very fancy as my other fellow panelists are. So maybe blue blazer with like slight polka dots. I'm quite short. I've got black and now blondish hair, and a fair complexion. So basically, I'm the global change and enablement lead at Standard Chartered Bank, and I kind of help steer critical HR initiatives that support organizations through change. But why I am yours, most importantly, is as someone navigating life with disability, I've seen firsthand how powerful it is when workplaces become more equitable and human-centered. And that's why I am here to learn and contribute to this agenda.
Thank you so much. And also to Cressida, who's also going to give us a state of the nation. I have never met anybody who talks in such fact, stat, evidence-based language in my life as Cressida does. And it's an absolute privilege that she's here today. So as well as her introduction, she's going to kick us all off today. We're just reminding us exactly why we're all here, and we're all giving it time to meet together as impact makers to try and create more change in the world. Over to you, Cressida.
Thank you, Leigh. Hi, everyone. My name's Cressida Stephenson. I'm CEO and founder of EdenChase Associates. So description-wise, white female, below shoulder length brown hair. I'm wearing my green glasses today. I've got blue eyes. I'm really poor in the fashion stakes today. I should have gone floral. I was hitting those floral notes with my mate Ian, but I've gone really dull. I've got a navy blazer and a black jumper on. So that's me. I'm an inclusive talent systems architect and neurodiversity and disability inclusion hiring strategist. So my background is 30 years in recruitment and search, and I sit at the intersection of government, policy and industry. I'm on the panel of the UK, the expert panel UK Hiring Better Institute. I also speak on disability inclusion in the House of Commons, and my work focuses on moving disability and neuro inclusion out of policy statements and awareness initiatives and into systems where hiring, performance and progression decisions are actually made. And the reason I'm really passionate about this is because I'm disabled myself. I have 15-year-old twins who are both neurodivergent, and as employers, as organisations are set up at the moment, currently, they are not set up to see the future generation coming through the pipeline. They're not set up to see them succeed, quite frankly. So my why, my all, and why I'm here, delighted to be here with my panelists, is to really help organisations change the narrative on disability inclusion, but also how then that relates to talent and systems, and how we can actually do much better moving forward, particularly for our future generations. So if we look at the UK workforce and state of the nation, as Leigh said, so we're in for a ride. Buckle up, people. So our workforce, our UK workforce, our talent workforce is changing dramatically, and I think far more quickly than organisations realise or are actually ready for. So let me give you some stats, because I do love a stat. You'll learn this about me as we go through. So our population, our UK population, is shrinking. It's aging, and we're also living longer, and we're economically active for longer. So what does that mean? So first of all, we are way below replacement birth rate level in the UK. Post Second World War, we were roughly around about 2.93 children per woman. We need to be around 2.1 for sustainable economic growth in the UK. We are now below 1.4. And that's very common trend across Western economies. And that's not a trend that's going to change. It's actually going to get worse. So what that means is that we've got much fewer. If you imagine your UK workforce talent pipeline, and this is your funnel, you've got much fewer youngsters coming into the UK workforce, into your talent marketplace, but also much fewer youngsters then consuming your products and services. What it means is that we are staying in the workforce longer, and we are aging. 83% of all disabilities are acquired during a person's lifetime. Only 17% are congenital, which means they're from birth. I acquired my disability 6 years ago. Prior to that point, it wasn't even on my radar. So as we're an aging population and we're having to work longer, retirement now isn't an option for many people because of the cost of living crisis, because of pensions, etc. So it means that we need to rely on work. So from an employer perspective, what that means is that we've now got 5 generations in our UK workforce, and each generation will have a very unique access requirement to access work. There'll be lots of different non-linear profiles that you will be looking at. There will be lots of different access routes to education and qualifications that might not typically satisfy your homogenous ATS system way of selecting candidates. And sorry, ATS is applicant talent systems. So all in all, our workforce is shrinking. And we need to really now, disability inclusion and neuro inclusion absolutely has to be part of your talent agenda. It's not a nice to have, it shouldn't be a side salad. It absolutely has to be fundamental for you to achieve sustainable growth and to continue market share, but also to be relevant for future consumers. And I'll stop there because I could go on forever.
No, that's great. Thank you, Cressida. And I know that you're at the intersection of all inclusion as well. And I really thoroughly enjoyed hearing you speak at the House of Lords towards the back end of last year on that topic with lots of people I know from the female tech agenda. So thank you for that. So just very quickly about Impact Match. We are a social impact agency. We aim to be able to create as much impact in the world as possible. We hope to make sure that we live in a world where every organisation and every leader can create measurable social impact, and it's not just confined to the ESG teams, as brilliant as they are. And we do that by delivering the people, plan and partnerships to do that. I should say that in terms of our services, just really quickly, we do strategy, talent and comms. We do lots of things, but the main thing that we love totally is our impact maker community, and we've got 6,000 people now, which is very exciting. So thank you for joining us today as part of that community. The other thing I should say is that we also have Christian on joining us today as well, who's our interpreter. So thank you very much, Christian, for joining us as well. And if anybody needs any assistance during this session, please do let us know. Now, we're all about impact. The clue is in the name. So we want to be able to start by offering a poll And I'm going to give you a bit of time to be able to answer this, just so we can make sure that the screen readers work. And the question is, so what is your current confidence level with regards to inclusive hiring practices? And we want you to be as honest as possible here, whether you feel not confident, quite confident, confident, or very confident. I feel like there's always something to learn on inclusive recruitment. And I'm always, I believe in a continual learning environment in any case. But yeah, if you could be as honest as possible, please, and fill in the poll, that would be fantastic. And then we'll ask you the question at the end as well, to make sure that we are providing impact to your lives and helping you to be even more inclusive in your day-to-day work. Thank you. So hopefully now people will have been able to poll. If you're having any problems and want to share that either direct to myself or to the team, or put it in the chat, then please feel free to do so. So if we could give us the results, Ellie, please. Thank you very much. Okay, great. That's so good and so helpful. So to read these out, we've got 25% of the impact makers today not feeling very confident. We've got quite confident for 50%, confident for 22%, and very confident is only 3%, which so I'm so glad you've joined today, because hopefully we'll be able to feel much more confident in either one of those spheres by the end of the call today. And thank you for participating in the poll. It's really important to us that we feel like we're adding value to people's lives. So over to some of the questions. And if any of you in the Impact Maker community want to ask a question, please do so using the Q&A tab, and we'll hopefully get to them at the end of the call. Honestly, this panel I could talk to for days. We all met last year at Connected Britain, which is one of our partners, and I'm pleased to say, we've not announced it publicly, but as it's our Impact Maker community, that we've been invited to go again this year, and our Impact Maker community we're normally able to invite as well. So hopefully we'll get that offer over to you later on in the year to be able to meet each other face to face. So anyway, I'm going to the questions. I'm going to stop talking and just ask questions. First of all, I'm going to go to Tom, if that's okay. So Mr. Tom Simpson, I adore your platform, as you know. It's so equitable. But my question to you is, your work focuses on making CVs evidence-based and bringing the personality to the front of the conversation. How does this approach help neurodiverse candidates who may have unconventional career paths or struggle to articulate their skills in a traditional format? And Tom, if you felt comfortable, it would be wonderful for you to share your personal experience here and why you have built the platform in the first place.
Yeah, thanks, Leigh. I guess from like a base perspective, like we all know that people with disabilities suffer real issues of inclusion all the way through education as well. So I'm much more likely to leave school, college with lesser qualifications, but have often got amazing personality traits. They've had real resilience. They've really fought through to build a personality that is really useful in a commercial way. And as we move forward, like, knowledge has never been less valuable now in society, I guess, in general. You know, with the advent of technology and AI and things like that, we're not really looking for people who have the information in their head. We're looking for people who use that information to take it to the next stage, if you like, and to communicate that information well. And I saw that I've got two neurodiverse children, one who's really, really good with music, one who's really, really good with languages. And I just didn't think they'd be able to showcase their skills with any great difference on two sides of A4. And I felt, and as that's gone on, my eldest son, who is really good academically, gets told 5 times a day how clever he is. My youngest son gets told 5 times a day how he's not quite good enough. And one of them is really confident, and one of them really struggles with confidence. It'd be no surprise which one is which. So I think, like, a place where people can leave a record of value and grow a personal portfolio of self not only gives them the opportunity to showcase themselves to a third party, it gives them the opportunity to feel valued before they submit that application, which I just don't believe the CV gives you the opportunity to do.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, and for sharing that story as well, and being able to kind of like just make lives much more equitable and reveal people's personalities. Um, Ian, over to you now. So you work in giffgaff, and I love how you all call it the gaff. I really love that. It reminds me of being at home back in Manchester. But being a written policy, beyond a written policy, what does creating a genuinely inclusive culture look like day to day back at the gaff, if you like? How does that manifest itself? You work for a large organization. What role do you play in championing this within the organization? How does it work?
Yeah, so I'm very proud to work in the gaff because what giffgaff are excellent at is really putting themselves into a real try kind of situation. So we will constantly try new things, and we'll learn from those things, we'll adapt, we'll continue to grow. And I think that for me is what inclusivity is, because we don't have all of the knowledge, because a lot of the stuff that we want to be hiring for, we don't even know is going to come up yet in the future. But what we do need to do, and what's really, really effective, is just start listening to our communities and finding out from the people that we've already got that rich knowledge that they hold about how they work in our company, what attracted them to our company, why they would want to continue and invest time into our company and stay with us. We need to listen to that. With active listening, we can put those plans in place that build a truly inclusive nature. And I think I'm living by the word, and I know Cressida is as well, so I don't want to steal too much, but I'm living by the word of disruption. And right now, we're in a climate where we can continue to do what we've always done. But if we continue to do that, we'll take little bits from here and there, but we're not going to be outright winners for people. And in order to make that change, we have to disrupt what it is that we're doing. And the only way we can do that is by getting genuine, honest opinions, continue with pulse surveys, talk to people in the market and find out what it is that would attract them to come to us, work around our EVPs to make sure that when we do get those people in, we're making it amazing for them. But continue their inclusive journey right from the day that they walk in the door after they've been recruited. Make sure that you are listening to their feedback and adapting the way we work. And we're really, really good at doing that in the gaff. We've done a lot around neuro diversity. We've done a lot in bringing in like neuro-inclusive meeting guides in order to make sure that everybody in the room is able to partake in the conversation. And it's just little things that we can do that actually the magic comes from the people you're talking to. We don't want one person to dictate how the rest of us do. We want to hear it from the community and make those changes, and that's true inclusivity.
And we just got a question about EVP. Presumably that's employee value proposition, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. How does that manifest itself to the recruitment process then, Ian?
So again, what we want to create is an area where we've attracted somebody that wants to come to find out more about the gaff, and wants to work with us. But it starts right from that word go. So understanding what their actual needs are. So as an example, I'll stick down the neurodiverse route. We're a big tech company, as you can imagine. More than half of our business is tech, and we have certain criteria that the guys need to do. We do a lot of pairing. This may be jargon, and I'm explaining it like somebody explained it to me, which is basically tech for dummies. So they do pairing, which basically you work in a tag team and create new solutions. So part of our recruitment basis was that we would ask someone to do that as in kind of a live interview process, and we would see. But what that was creating is, for a neurodivergent person, that creates anxiety. Okay, that creates we're asking them to deliver to a level that actually might not be appropriate. So what we did is we took the concerns of the person that had raised this with us, and we completely changed the process. We created it so that there was a different time scale. We created it so they could do it from home, so that they could do it in a natural way that allowed us to see what their talent was and how that would then work for giffgaff. What it also did as a byproduct of that is it gave us a new way of actually recruiting. It gave us a different style that we can now finesse and make even better for the next people that are coming through. So, especially from recruitment, don't ever see somebody as an obstacle, because actually there's so many great lessons behind it.
Yeah. And I think that kind of co-design and then being able to benefit everyone. Some of the best inventions have been created because of people with disability. So your product set gets better and better and better by working with a diverse community. And it's not just with regards to disability, but gender, ethnicity, everything. Everything is for everyone. And there's so much intersectionality with people that we need to make sure that we're not just taking the average, because I honestly don't think that there is such thing as an average person in any case. So I think that's a great example of where because you've got an agile development process, you're listening, co-designing, and then improving things for everyone, which is wonderful. Moving over to Disha now, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So you work at one of the biggest financial services organizations. You've got a disability that you've kindly shared yourself. How has your own personal story and challenges faced kind of influenced your work and changed some of the policies that you have as an organization? Would you mind sharing that? And basically, any advice that you can give to us on in the community would be fantastic. So the lessons learned as well, Disha.
Absolutely. And I'll be more than happy to share some of my lived experiences. So, and I kind of firmly believe that inclusion begins where assumptions end, but getting there requires a lot of courage. So again, I have lived disability with physical disability all my life. And I know statistically speaking, when people see me walk with mobility aid, they've already made assumptions. Maybe not consciously, maybe just a flicker of, will she be able to cope up? Will she be able to handle the stress? So I've kind of lived with it like at every moment of my life. And to give you an example, years ago, I actually walked into an interview, qualified, prepared, and hopeful. But the moment they saw me with my mobility aid, the questions changed. It was a different environment in the room. It wasn't about the strategic HR experience that I possess, but it was more about whether I'll be able to handle the pace. And that moment wasn't just personally painful. It was actually professionally revealing because I knew that I have to give in much more than any able person has to. And now I sit in boardrooms and, shadow boards, helping organizations reshape that lens. But I still hear hiring managers say, we just want someone who fits in. And I'm like, fits into what? And who gets left out? I think it's very, very important to understand that what's the psyche of the managers. And I think the biggest challenge which I've seen is the mindset inertia. And inclusive hiring that definitely requires that fundamental shift from hiring for comfort to actually hiring for capability.
Yes.
Or from hiring for culture fit to hiring for actually culture add.
Yes.
And that shift can actually feel risky to leaders who've been rewarded for sameness. So I have kind of worked a lot at various leadership positions in the recruitment and the talent space. And I think there are 3 practical strategies and advice that I would like to give the team here that's actually worked for me. Number 1 is make the business case visible and personal. So what we used to do is we pair the data with lived experiences, such as people like me. And when a candidate say, I almost didn't apply because I didn't see anyone like me here, it actually shifts from theoretical to urgent. Number 2 is co-create hiring practices, which we've kind of briefly touched upon. We involve disabled, neurodivergent, and racially diverse colleagues in redesigning some of the job specs and interview formats. What's happened is because of this, it led to more fairer assessment, stronger hires, and a culture that doesn't just accommodate differences, it actually celebrates it. And number 3, which I feel is very, very important and has really worked well, is really upskill and hold leaders accountable. We are an organization of 85,000 people with 14,000 leaders, and each of them have a responsibility. So we embed inclusive hiring into their leadership agreements and performance goal. So it just does not become like a side metric. And I'm going to use Cressida's word as a side salad. No, it isn't. It's a core expectation because what gets measured, gets done.
Yes.
So overall, I think inclusive hiring isn't just a tick box. It's about transformation. And today, if anybody feels that people can be boxed in, consciously or not, I think today is the day we start kind of really challenging that perception and unpacking that belief.
Lovely. Thank you. I really like the way that you talked about bringing it into a framework of 3 or 4 different key things that you need to do. But also, I hear you and Cressida talk a lot about culture add. So not encouraging people to join an existing culture, and really be able to kind of not celebrate sameness, I think you said, which has been trained into lots of different organizations' cultures for many years. I've got a question for you, actually. How do you think you can accelerate that culture change in terms of the kind of changing the culture of leaders to not go for the sameness and to go for culture add?
I think it's not going to be like a simple answer that this is going to happen, because it does take lot of time. And that's when we have kind of in an organization, we kind of speak a lot about measuring. And that's why the way we've done is we've kind of created a lot of formal frameworks around it. And that framework is again got 3 strands. One is the culture, the second is the business priorities, and the third is regulatory compliance. And then each strand is something that is hardwired into how we operate. And it's just not a model imperative, but it's a strategic one. So we've kind of created those pillars and those frameworks. So for example, in the culture brand, we ensure that we tailor all our employee brand campaigns to kind of promote DEI culture on our social media platforms and alumni networks. We've created like a TA, talent acquisition brand ambassador program, where we connect like high potential diverse candidates through informal networks and conversations. We have spoken a lot about the business priorities, and that's kind of really helped. So we've kind of strengthened succession pipelines across all businesses and not just in pockets. And plus, we do a lot of hard-coded metrics. I think that's very important, because then the leaders feel responsible. So we have some metrics like, we track female representation, we track Black and African heritage talent, or even the Chinese heritage talent, because as I said, we are an organization with 85,000 people. And then we realize that what gets measured gets managed, and then what gets managed gets momentum. So these are some of the things that we've been kind of doing to ensure that the culture sticks.
Yeah, and we held, thank you. And as you know, we've been talking to financial service organisations about what are the metrics, and actually the gap that Sarah talks about really fluently is the gap between engagement from when somebody starts at the organisation and how comfortable or trusted the environment is for them to trust it to be able to share their condition, versus when they share their engagement, through the colleague engagement survey, where they know it's anonymous, and being able to track that gap in engagement, because that's a really good measure of trust, from being able to be to share it when you know that your details will be understood to be attributed to yourself, versus when it's anonymous. Thank you so much, Disha. And over to Cressida now for a question, if that's all right. You work with some brilliant organisations, Cressida, doing what you do, and being in an impact faculty that you are, I've had the good fortune of taking your training as well to make sure that we're being an inclusive recruiter. And it's a long journey or a short journey, depending on where people are. But how do you find, what does it mean to you to kind of really embed disability inclusion into the talent systems, rather than just treating it as a policy or program? Like, if you can share some really good practice, what does really good look like to you?
So when we start to embed inclusion into our talent systems, what we need to be doing is actually moving from inclusion as aspiration to inclusion as infrastructure. So at the moment, and where inclusion I think falls down for a lot of organisations, it's not due to lack of intent. I think genuinely organisations really want to do it well. They sign up for it. It's part of their core values. But the challenge that we have, and this is why I talk about inclusion as a side salad, is because inclusion lies in our values. It lies in our awareness programs, maybe our policies, but it doesn't live in our systems. So when risk enters the room, when financial risk, compliance risk enters the room, what happens is managers will default to making decisions that make them feel safe. And I think, as Disha said, that we look for sameness, we recruit for sameness. And so if you imagine a pressure barometer, and you have, I think it's called a barometer, right? When you measure pressure. I got a D in my physics, gang. So let's just work with me on this. But I love an analogy. So at the very 0 point, okay, where there's zero pressure in the room, everyone is values intent and values led, and everyone buys into inclusion. When you start to then increase the pressure, then you start to get more efficiency comes into the room. Okay, so then people start looking at maybe targets, they're looking for sameness, they're looking at reducing cost of delivery, etc. Then when you then crank up the pressure again, then you might be looking at commercial risk. At that point, then difference becomes a huge risk, and sameness is the preferred route because it's safer, and there's no allowance for sameness in the room. Now, the challenge with that is that if managers are left on their own to have to make those decisions themselves, because the systems that they have are ambiguous, there's no real bottom line, there's no default setting, there's no framework, there's no language library, there's no scripts, there's no practical application for managers in the human moment when they have to make a decision under pressure, under financial risk, under compliance, whatever it is. I can guarantee you they're going to default to that safe option, because that's human nature. That's what we do as human beings. If you start to systemize and operationalize disability inclusion, and you start to put professional competence and rigor behind it, and start to create it into a professional skill, then it stops becoming this side salad that you sign up to that starts making you feel good. And I've got a double triple mac and cheese, but I've got a side salad, so I'm feeling healthy, so it's all right because I had a salad at lunch. We all do that, right? Let's make it the main event, and the way you do that is to actually embed it in your systems and your operational processes. And with organizations that I work with who are starting to do that, the transformation is huge, and it's only just by doing little steps, starting small in certain areas. When you start to have systems in place that managers trust and they can refer to, particularly come around accommodations and adjustments, that's a huge area that people don't know where their responsibilities start and end. What can we do from a compliance risk perspective? I don't know what language to use, I don't know how to engage in the conversation, etc. All of that stuff. Operationalize it. I've got methods in place, all of that stuff. When you actually lift that up and you put it into an organization, suddenly your TA staff, your managers are very comfortable having those conversations. And that in turn, as a system, then opens up all these other opportunities that you can start having with candidates and talent, and saying, okay, what do you need? This is the role. How can we help you? How can we help you perform at your best? And that changes instantly. So that's just an example.
And I'm loving the community as well, because they're giving each other advice as well from what they've learned. So we've got Mary from AbilityNet who's giving us some advice as well in there. So do, as part of the community, do have a look at the chat and see what people are saying. I'm loving this. I'm learning so much, and I hope you're all learning as well as panel members and as the community. Thanks, Cressida, for that. And yeah, if I take one thing away from today, it's not to have it as a side salad. I really love that analogy. You're going to be having everybody talking about this side salad now. Right, so back to Tom. Thanks, Cressida. So let's get on to the subject of AI and digital platforms, if that's okay, Tom. So as they're obviously becoming increasingly central to job applications, what is the one piece of advice you would give to a person trying to create a compelling evidence-based profile that stands out to both humans and algorithms? And it'd be really great to get feedback on this from the community as Tom talks through his experiences, because this is key. And I think we have these masterclasses, we run them for free for the community because we believe in paying it forward. And I just love it when people learn from one another. One of the things that we do is we help people with their application process. You'd be surprised at the number of people that are amazing people, but they just don't represent themselves on their CVs or through their LinkedIn or whatever. Tom's platform aims to change that. But I think, Tom, it'd be really great to know from your perspective, given that you've got, I think, something like 1 million subscribers to your service now. Like, how do you see it? How do you see it going forward?
Well, I'm going to talk very anecdotally, with a little bit of data. The more personality people evidence and display, and by personality, I really mean passion. So people want to see that someone can love something, can engage with something, can really give themselves over to like a passion. Like we see profiles that are filled with Lego, or people traveling and there's hundreds of locations, or gigs, and it's everything from the Pussycat Dolls to Oasis. Like being proud of who you are and engage in self makes people want to know more about you. I always think and this is actual data, the most viewed bit of information on a starting point profile is nearly always the person's pet. Because if someone says, I've got a dog, no one can help but say, what dog you got? What's your dog called? And so we have actually, we've got data that shows some of the biggest global engineering companies are going for people who were predicted 4s in maths over people who are getting predicted 9s, even though they're saying, well, we can work with them to get math, but they've got personality traits. We're like, they do some form of engineering as a hobby. They build Lego. Actually, the company was Siemens. I actually had a conversation with Siemens, and they were like, why do you need a 9 in maths to build a wind turbine? It's just massive Lego. Yeah. And so I think what I would say is and I think it's something I talk about a lot. Knowledge is dead. It's not 50 years ago where your doctor needed to know exactly what was wrong with you because you had a pain in your little toe. Even your GP's entering that into a computer, which AI is kicking out the response. We're in the final throes of that form of competency, because it's at everybody's fingertips. What people want is something that's actually much more simple. Someone who's engaged, someone who can have passion for something, because then they can have passion for the job. Somebody who is good in an office, somebody who adds to an environment. And those things are displayed from showing passion. And people like that.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom. I'm conscious of the number of questions that we're getting from the audience, and we've only got 20 minutes left. So if it's okay with the panel, there's some amazing questions that are coming through. Would you be okay if we move to the questions from the audience panel? Is that okay? As fascinating as you are, I think sometimes listening to the questions that are coming up from the community is even more engaging. Right, we have, and I love it. Everybody's answering the questions themselves between the community. We had one from Reg, which I really loved, which is, where is it now? Oh, okay. How many of you have any questions associated with any of the equality characteristics in the main application? Oh, sorry, it keeps on going down. Oh, sorry. I.e., do you need to support an interview? Oh, there's no way of freezing it. I think it's because it's in the not in the Q&A. Sorry, Reg. It's because the page keeps going down.
Just to flag, it is in the Q&A. If you just go
to you put it in the Q&A. Perfect. Right, I will go to Mr. Reg's question. Oh, here you go. So how many of you have questions associated to any of the equality characteristics on the application form? Do you support at interview? Should that be in the equality monitoring form for HR to deal with, and not the panel interview? Where do you believe that sits? So maybe that's a good question for Disha.
Yeah, so what we do is we have in all our advertising adverts, in our company policy documents, in our company website, everywhere, we do kind of talk about that we are kind of disability confident organization, and if you need any kind of support, if you need kind of any help, then to reach out to this person, we can make any kind of changes in the kind of infrastructure. So definitely it is we kind of talk about it more, but I think sometimes we don't even get the basics right. For example, the job descriptions, right? So just when we were kind of talking about it, let me just give you an example that happened literally with me last week, when we were just reviewing some of the job descriptions, and there was some of the jargons used, must thrive in a high energy, fast paced environment. And when I was reading about it, it definitely sounded dynamic. But for someone with a disability, say like a neurodivergence or a caregiving responsibility, it read like, you don't belong here. Or, we changed it more like to a collaborative outcome focused team. So I think still there's work to do, because I feel that we keep saying about it that we are a disability confident organization, but when we are actually putting it to test, we kind of fail in a number of aspects. So get the basics right. But yeah, we do talk about it a lot in our basic recruitment platforms.
Okay, thank you. And Diane's got a question with regards to addressing the biggest elephant in the room. It's a really good question. So we've got laws, awards, companies sign up to disability confident, and I think this relates to what you were just saying, Disha. But in real life, it's really hard, and people are experiencing discrimination left, right, and centre. You only need to kind of see some of the stories shared. I did some insight recently and put out a post asking for people that had gone through redundancy. What was that process for them? And actually, on paper, it just seems very different, where ageism is rife, etc. As impact makers, as a community, what do we think as a panel we could do collectively to stop some of that, and to really, not saying that we think as impact makers everybody should be perfect, but how can we make sure that we are, where possible, really driving the change and not just coming together to understand what we need to do and then not doing it? What makes a difference? Anybody like to take that on? Oh, Tom, go on.
I think it's touching on something that ITV said earlier on. I think it's educating people within commercial enterprise that it's okay to ask. Because I think we all know what big businesses are like, by and large risk averse, by and large petrified of anything going wrong. You know what I mean? Very a culture of HR is almost loss prevention. Whereas I think it's flipping that on its head and making it okay to say to somebody, or them feeling confident it is okay to say to somebody, confident enough to say to somebody, is that okay? Is there anything more we can do? How did you find this process? And actually seek feedback from actual stakeholders of the issue and the problem. That's how you empower people, isn't it? By making their decision. I always laugh at how many, and this isn't just around this subject, how many times, you see a group of middle-aged white men just making decisions for everybody. And you think it's about empowerment, and that empowerment comes from asking and making sure that there is, there's not just the seats at the table, it's voices, it's removing the tokenistic and starting to get into the, what could we have done better there? And I actually think, because once you start to have that conversation two ways, then you move on to the next bit. Disha made a really good point. What is measured is done. Yeah. Well, all of a sudden, if businesses at the end of a recruitment process are going to people and saying, how could we have done that better? Next time they can't say they didn't know. Yeah. So I would much prefer feedback from applicants that is then has to be used to inform decision.
Yeah. I was just going to say, you touched on something there, Tom, around data, because that's goes hand in hand with reporting, right? And
yeah,
I think one of the things that, I've got people in the community that are much better at this than I am, but I am obsessed with data-backed evidence. And actually, what we're starting to look at is making sure that it's more transparent, the difference between productivity when you have an inclusive environment versus a non-inclusive environment. And really putting it into from an employment point of view, the KPIs that define business success, because it is universally true that a more diverse organization creates much better innovation, revenue, productivity, etc. So I think from my point of view, I'd love to work with the community to bring that evidence to the fore. And to be able to bring the narrative, the conversation, much more fact-based on the facts, because this isn't nebulous, this is fact, and being able to talk about that. So, but if anybody in the community has got different ideas or would like to share them, please do so in the chat. This is the place to do it, and we're all listening, and we're reading all of the comments that you're making.
So Leigh, just to add to your point on data, I think, again, wanted to kind of bring in a little bit of my experience here, that I was working with data dashboards, and we saw that all our reportings and metrics are green. But there was one thing that actually struck my eye was that when we're looking at exits, there were more diverse hires that were quietly exiting. And when we were kind of looking deeper into it, means that while we are getting people here, we are not giving them an atmosphere and environment to progress.
Yes.
Or genuinely belong there. So I think that's an important aspect that was like an eye-opener for me, that while it's important to get in people, but also to ensure that they belong to a particular organization.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. I think somebody else raised that question as well, is making sure that the culture ad is celebrated and rewarded and supported through that process, and not just on application but all the way through the organization. We've got a really good question here from somebody that seems to be working in a startup. They've called it a de facto boys club, and they believe that the culture is superficial support but no willingness to change. What would you suggest are some very practical solutions to that within a small startup environment? Tom, it's probably a good one for you on Cressida, this one, actually, having worked in startups. How do you create that inclusive environment?
I sound dreadfully capitalist when I'm going to say this. The best thing you can do in a startup is hire people who are neurodiverse and who are marginalised by society, because you'll create loyal, hard-working people who represent you incredibly well. People who want to wear your t-shirt, your jacket, your background on your Zoom as a badge of honour. People who stood in the trenches with them. Again, I think how to do it is just to start doing it. I think, not to simplify things, doing a list about how doing it doesn't do it. Putting it on your to-do list doesn't do it. Talking about it doesn't do it. Just do it. And I think it is just about going out there and seeing who is about, being open to conversations with people, exploring opportunity, and you'll find the right people. And some of those people will need support and adaptations, and some of them won't. And but minded on outcome and equity.
Yeah,
I guess so. Like that, I guess I'm quite fortunate. Like, I come from a mixed race family with two gay brothers, and I've got two neurodiverse sons. So like I live with difference from an early age. It's just inbuilt in me. But so as a result, I've never seen the opposite to that. So that's why I would say just engage with it as best as you can.
Yeah. And I think Diane raises a good question on this, Tom and panel as well. She's basically saying that it's all very well saying that, on the job ad on social media, we're an inclusive company, etc. But when you get into the interview, there's and Reg was referring to this as well. People will make up an excuse not to recruit because it's perceived that it's going to cost them a lot of money in terms of adjustments, or they won't want to be in the office every day. I mean, to me, I feel this is all about information. NASA, who runs Microlink, for those of you that don't know that organization, he's got so much data on this about the fact that most people with requiring adjustments, it doesn't cost that much money. And also, that when you have people in the office or outside of the office, it doesn't matter because it's about productivity. But it seems to be like this fear factor. And then what happens is people give you the wrong reason for why they've not offered you the job in real life. That's what Diane is suggesting. Has anybody got any examples of how you're tackling that within organizations from a culture point of view? Maybe this is a good one for Disha and Ian within the big corporates.
Yeah, I mean, I completely get it. And let's be honest, right? There is no magic wand that is going to change anybody's opinion. We are fighting it, and that's exactly why we've got to have these kind of conversations. And probably the people that are on this call are already part of the choir that we're preaching to. And what we've got to do is I go back to the word disrupt. You've got to disrupt it to get to the people that make the decisions and make the changes. So for us, we've just talked about data, and Leigh, you've just said, the data tells us that if we get diversity, if we get inclusion right, that we're going to have have higher employee engagement. We're also going to end up with higher profits by the end because the markup, happy people sell more products, etc.
Yeah.
That's the foot in the door. That's the conversation as to why it's important. So a boys club, it's a great description. But again, if I go into a boys club and say to them, I've got a way that I'm going to make you more money, I can guarantee you they will stop and listen. What's really, really important then, and I think what's really like the backing of everything we do from an inclusive perspective is the real life story, the real life motivation, why it makes a difference, etc. So if you look at, as I said, we're a tech company, so neurodiversity we know attracts more people into tech. Okay, so I could say that potentially 53% of my tech guys are neurodiverse. So what you want to look at then is, well, have we got a pot where people are leaving, like Disha said, where just disappearing from the company? Why are they doing that? Well, if 50% of the people aren't being communicated to effectively, that's why they're going. So we can train them as much as we want. We can give them all the detail and the data. But actually, if we've not communicated in a way that they understand, why would they stay? So we have to start changing our practice. And actually, in the long run, that's saving us money, that's improving engagement, and that's delivering a better output for the company. So it's all about trying to put it back into people's language. And I think sometimes we've got to be really careful with the buzzwords that we use when we talk about inclusion, because actually they can be really isolating as well. And people just don't follow it on and don't understand. So make sure you're speaking in a really human form, but then bring in those real life examples. And, we think we've moved forward as a culture. And I just want to give you an example that we saw. I went to an inclusive event where we had somebody come up to do a chat for us who was disabled. And what they'd forgot was that there was a giant step to get onto the stage. So we all had to sit and watch this person struggle to get on to the stage. Now, that was in front of a group of senior leaders. And I can tell you the day after, things started to change because it was there in the face to say, actually, this is a huge problem we've created that would have taken a tiny, tiny amount of effort to change. And again, that then changes the way that they feel valued, the way that they want to continue working for the company. If you want to cost save, there's really easy ways to do that. And in a boys club, a lot of it is about that. So get those little bits right and we can make the change and the difference that we need to.
Yeah, it's even true. I mean, when we did an event at the beautiful House of Lords, because the building's obviously not been built for inclusion, but we were able to design the stage specifically for people with chairs, and they'd made the bespoke stage for us because we co-designed it with them. But then on another ramp that looked like it was fine, it actually needed assisted help because the angle was too high. So it's making sure that even though you've got services that you feel have been inclusive, if you don't co-design them with people, they're just not going to be. Disha, have you got anything to add to that quickly before we go to the wrap-up? And I want to ask Cressida one more question.
Yeah, absolutely. So completely agree with Tom's views here. Just one more thing I want to kind of add is that I think business case is really, really important. Because I feel that the leaders think that this is inclusion is charity and it's not strategy, which is not correct. It isn't charity, it is actually strategy because there are enough and more data points proven for it. So I think one aspect that really worked for us is hold leaders accountable. So we, as I was telling you earlier as well, we embed inclusive hiring into their leadership agreements and performance goals. So that's their core expectation, and that's kind of really helped us. That it has to be the core thing. It's not a nice to have thing, but it actually is something that at the end of the year you're going to be assessed on your performance based on how much have you contributed to the inclusion agenda of the bank.
Amazing. That's brilliant and lovely to see, because sometimes you need these measures in place until they happen normally, right? It's the same on the female agenda. I used to have lots of debates with people about having mandates for the number of women in senior leadership positions, but sometimes you have to create that intervention because the rate of change is just not fast enough. Like it took us 10 years to try and get equality. As soon as the mandate came in, the progress just went through the roof within 2 years. So, I definitely am a massive believer in that, Disha, and it's great to know that in your amazing bank that's baked into performance measures. Like, how wonderful is that? So, Cressida, talked a lot there about kind of what really happens in real life versus what companies are doing. Would you mind just wrapping up for me in terms of, if you could do kind of like 3 things as an organization, which kind of systems matter the most if they want to be inclusive? And you get organizations coming to you a lot, I know, because I've met quite a few of them, saying, Cressida, we need help. What do you find are the 3 most powerful things? Because it's not possible to do everything. No. We're a startup ourselves, for example, though, and you stop saying that now, we're 18 months old. I know, it's exciting. How do you make sure that all organizations are doing these 3 things to be able to be as inclusive as possible?
So, and just quickly to go back on the point about accommodations and adjustments, fun fact for you. So the average cost of an accommodation adjustment in the UK is around about £850 versus the average cost of maternity is £20,000. Now, we wouldn't look twice if someone went on maternity or paternity, right? But oh my goodness, you need an ergonomic chair. Get out of here. I'm not spending 400. Seriously, there's a majority of accommodations and adjustments at 0 cost. It's in our heads, so we need to get over ourselves. So I'll just end on that one. So 3 things that we need to do is, first of all, stop treating inclusion as a side salad, as a nice to have. It's an imperative that we start to really onboard this. And as Ian said, if you go into your boardroom, go into senior leadership and say, look, I've got a brilliant way to save you money, and I've got a brilliant way for you to increase market share and to get the best talent pipeline you possibly can. I don't know any FTSE chair board who would not want to have that conversation and be really interested in having that conversation with you. What we need to be doing is this. We need to be putting professional rigor behind inclusion. So we need to start systemizing it. So the first things that we need to be doing, and again, don't boil the ocean, because when you start on this journey, you're like, oh my God, it's so big, I can't cope. And what happens is we just get so overwhelmed by everything that we end up probably doing nothing, or we end up doing a lot of things really badly. So just focus on one thing first, whatever that light touch, whatever feels easiest for you to be able to create a case study to go back and say, look, but you need to measure it. So that could be things like, for example, if you're looking at maybe redesigning roles, because I saw someone in the comments was saying about, but we use the same competencies, we do this. If you have, maybe identify a few roles within your organisation and totally redesign how you write your job descriptions. So rather than focusing on prescriptive inputs, you focus on inclusive outputs. When we start talking about people need X amount of experience, they need to have qualifications. Disabled and neurodivergent talent have different access to qualifications and experience, okay? So they will naturally be ranked lower in your AI ATS systems. So think about maybe redesigning job descriptions, always having a human in the loop. If you're going to be using ATS, if you're a big organization, you're using ATS to screen your candidates before they even see a human. Make sure that you've got some kind of human in the loop to assess and to be able to pull out and rescue some brilliant candidates if that's how you're applying. Accommodations and adjustments, I can't emphasize this enough. It's such a straightforward process and framework to implement, and it's brilliant. We're all asking the wrong questions. We're all asking, do you identify as being disabled? Do you have any adjustment needs? And we're putting the burden of being open on that individual. And when an individual going through the recruitment process shares what their access needs are, that is the most vulnerable time for them in their recruitment process. And majority of disabled candidates, Disha will back this up, I can speak from my own personal experience, the minute you share what your access needs are, is the minute you're vulnerable, the minute you're open to discrimination. And 9 times out of 10, disabled and neurodivergent candidates will experience discrimination in that way. So it actually needs to be baked into, this is our interview process. This is how we hire. How can we support you in our interview process with company X? Because how can I tell you what my access needs are if I don't understand what your interview process is? because then it's a game of, you know, Russian roulette, isn't it? And I'm not prepared to go first with that information. I need you to tell me. And by doing that, that's a brilliant sign. So look at your accommodations and adjustments, speak to your senior leadership. And if you want a little mini project, then maybe pick a couple of roles and redesign with an inclusive outputs focus, as Tom was saying earlier. There's so many more things, but keep it small and keep it relatable and keep it achievable. And once you've done one, you then can, you know, gain confidence to carry on and build. There's loads of other stuff, but we need to systemize and operationalize what we do.
Anybody wants more advice from Cressida, she runs the most amazing course that you can dial in from via a webinar. Just to get a couple of slides up, because I'm conscious of time and everybody will be going to their lunch, if not having their lunch or to a meeting. If you're able, if you could just spend 1 minute to fill in this question. I know we've only had an hour today. Honestly, I think we could have done with 2 or 3 hours on this call today. Please do fill in the poll, just so we can see how much progress we've made today and how the advice has gone down. We completely understand it's not going to be fixed in an hour. That would be wonderful. And if we could have the results, please, Ellie. And for those of you that want to let us know via direct message, that would be great. So that's great. So there's nobody not confident now. Yay. Well done, panel and community makers, for helping one another. That's great. And we've got confident at 50% and very confident at 5%. So we've definitely made a move there. Well done. I'm proud of everyone today. Thank you so much. And just very quickly, we've just got a couple of slides for those of you that are able to stay on. I am a trustee of the wonderful AbilityNet charity. They are incredible. They've got e-learning available. So there's a slide here. When we send out this pack, we're going to include more information about what Cressida does as well as Tom. Check him out on Startingpoint. That platform is amazing, particularly for young people, because I know there was a question there that we couldn't get to. Tom's solution is wonderful at Startingpoint. Do join up to the community as well. Thank you very much, everyone. We've got another session, and Tom, you're joining us again for that. We're going to be looking at building the future workforce with the amazing Pooja Patel, who is head of universities at Santander, and Polly Morgan, who is the CEO of the IDEA Foundation, who has trained 2 million people across the world in digital skills. So we're going to explore supporting confidence, capability, and career clarity, bridging the gap between education and employment, and what employers can do to build an inclusive future-ready pipelines. Again, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. I love these sessions so much. So nice to be able to talk to one another. Please watch out for the next sessions that we have. We're trying to do more and more of these. If any of you have got ideas about things that you would like us to debate as a community, please let us know. If you think we could be doing something better, please let us know. We're always here to learn. We are a small organisation, but we're getting bigger. And with your help, we're going to have even more impact. So that's what it's all about, everyone. I hope you have a lovely afternoon. Thank you so much. And thank you to Christian as well for supporting us, and Reg today on the call, and everybody else who's been just so wonderful. It's an absolute privilege to know you all. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.